Dear viewers, good day and welcome to our series Visit Today. At this point I would like to thank you for all your letters. The kind words to me, to this show, and in the meantime a very nice contact has been established. I've had the privilege of getting to know one or the other, and thank you so much for keeping this format alive. It is also filled by the content that moves you and that lets me answer from my perspective. It also has something to do with trust in someone you confide in, even if we make it public here. I think it's nice to share knowledge with each other and give advice. I think that can then multiply all by itself. And so our own consciousness grows and grows and grows. I'm sure I repeat myself often on the shows. I can't say it often enough. Illness is never a condition but a process that our body wants to find to get healthy again. It serves us, it accompanies us. It is dependent on what we do with it, whether consciously or unconsciously. And I picked up a request today from a concerned wife telling me, my husband is 55 years old and he likes to drink half a liter to a liter of milk a day. And I read that this is not good and not conducive to his health. Maybe let me answer that question today. It's not really typical for an adult to drink so much milk. Especially since I keep observing that men or people above all report it to me. So who is the milk for? The milk always belongs to the animal whose mother gave birth to it, so to the calf or kitten or any mammal. That means what we do as humans is actually not what nature intended. You have to put that at the beginning, because only those who give birth to a child give milk, and that task is to nurture that child. Of course, we humans have become very unscrupulous in this respect. And I don't want to question in any way that even after the war, we saw milk as a very high-quality food for our children, when perhaps nothing else was there. But those days are long forgotten, thank God. What we are doing today is really against nature, and nature did not intend it, feeding a child a foreign protein. So, many children, and especially blue-eyed ones, this is the lymphatic type, cannot process this foreign protein. These children grow up very quickly and are constantly disturbed by an immunological memory against this cow's milk protein, by cradle cap, by neurodermatitis, quite tormented by recurring sore throats, by bronchial asthma, which continues into adulthood. This means that one should very well think about these things, whether there isn't one thing that's the very best starting point for the children. And that means giving milk that allows the child to grow up without problems. And there's no way around it that the mother is breastfeeding. But now I come back to your question. And a cow that we observe today in normal dairy farming has production tasks to perform, of course. This cow is available with her milk 300 days a year. But that only works if the cow is also kept pregnant, because shortly before the birth of the calf the milk is produced. And when the milk production drops, the cow is artificially inseminated again, from the outside. The calf is actually not needed. The rearing of the calf is actually too expensive. What you want is a dairy cow. And you want to use this dairy cow for 300 days a year and for a maximum of 6 years. And then the dairy cow goes to the slaughterhouse. It's just a little bit different in organic cows. Even with organic cows, there is not the great need for the calves. This must not be forgotten. Although the rearing possibilities respectively. The way the organic cows are kept is clearly different. So the normal dairy cow has to be available 300 days a year. And that also means that they are, of course, as part of this pregnancy, kept in a very high hormone activity. This is estrone sulfate, which of course, the more often and the longer and the more intensively a cow is kept pregnant, this proportion of estrogen is also very high, which of course has implications for the cow itself, because she forms an incredibly large udder. If you differentiate between an organic cow and an obligatory normal dairy cow, then you can already see that from the extent of the udders. So a normal cow in the dairy farm, she's standing there, she's pretty emaciated because the heaviness, of course the strength of this udder and this constant consuming of her makes her a very skinny cow. Ribs and the pelvic bones are visible, the back curves. That means this cow actually has to deliver a large amount of milk daily, almost up to 70 liters. And of course that affects her health too. Because they naturally have to be pregnant all the time, of course, this also keeps the milk flow going. And the fate of these cows is of course not nice, because when they have served their time, then of course they are disposed of again, and the dairy cow then has to give birth to around 3 to 5 calves in the course of her life as part of this pregnancy. That's one thing, that's the high estrogen content of milk. And I don't even want to talk about with what we do today in an animal husbandry, in a mass animal husbandry, of course. The animals are completely burdened by antibiotics and by high pesticides or by feed contaminated with antibiotics. But now only the high hormone content of the milk, which is important for the calf. There is no question that the calf should be able to stand on its own 2 feet quickly and naturally provide a calf with sufficient nutrients. But that is no longer required for an adult. We're seeing a big rise in prostate cancer right now in Switzerland and Denmark. And we also see that of course the so-called insulin-like growth factor, that is the IGF, has a very high toxic effect on those who consume it. This means that an emerging insulin resistance is now linked to illnesses such as muscle pain, high blood pressure, the development of diabetes, osteoporosis, but also hormonally active tumors such as colon, prostate, and breast cancer. The tumor growth is also essentially pushed by the high hormone content. So one shouldn't overestimate this need for milk. And I'm not talking about that you might as well, let's say, enhance your coffee with some milk too. But it's always the dose that makes the poison, Paracelsus said. And we see today in countries that in no way have this large consumption of milk and milk products. Clearly on statistics, that we don't have these hormone-active tumors in such a high incidence in any way. The other thing is that of course according to this udder size and this huge amount, to produce milk, an organic cow has to deliver about 25 to 30 liters a day, and a normal dairy cow 60 liters. The proportion of IGF-1 then also increases, that is, on this insulin-like growth factor. This is important. Insulin resistance today, that means that insulin can no longer dock to the cell, so that the sugar as a fast source of energy no longer is available for the energy metabolism. I just mentioned how many diseases result from it. But today we talk about dementia as one form. Dementia has different forms, including insulin resistance. And if you understand insulin resistance, that insulin resistance also leads to a decrease in the energy output of the cells, then I just have to say it's the time. The many and the long time we consume the milk. But of course it is also the amount that we consume that is not healthy at the moment. The other thing is that milk naturally contains a lot of milk sugar, lactose. There are some countries in Europe that have an enzyme deficiency, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, milk sugar. And at the moment there are a multitude of gastrointestinal diseases, including autoimmune diseases, and due to this high level of lactose an intolerance arises because I cannot break it down properly, it becomes a health risk. That's the first point, the insulin-like growth factor. The second is the high hormonal stress. Be careful with estrogen, especially in men. For tumor screening for prostate cancer we have no major screening tests other than PSA at all. We might look through a digital direct examination or ultrasound for the size of the prostate, but we are rarely interested in hormone metabolism. We don't care enough. Can estrogen also be broken down? I've had quite a few shows about the COMT, the estrogen breaking enzyme, so that's very important to know. This means that the tumor growth of a prostate carcinoma can be provoked by estrogen. And if the estrogen isn't broken down, then of course it will surge. On the other hand, I can also get into estrogen dominance from a progesterone deficiency. Men should know that too. And the whole question of prostate carcinoma is of course also parasitic and toxic, because the prostate contains a lot of toxins also within the scope of the possibilities to store toxins, so that they do not have any further negative influence on the body. These are actually important things, also in prostate prevention. I don't think at all that it's enough that we just evaluate the prostate morphologically from the outside or judge the PSA value, which is not a tumor marker, but a normal biomarker. But in the context of the milk, I really seriously have to point out that estrogen dominance also serves as a certain impetus to this tumor process. In the context of the prostate, since we're talking about your husband, Also, the reference to bisphenol A as a plasticizer in everything that is plastic acts like a xenohormone, like an estrogen. This also means that bisphenol A can be detected in the blood, for example. And with that you already have some important parameters clarified, which ultimately, here's an area, and if that is the symptomatic level, then it takes at least 10-15 years until the whole events slowly show a clinical symptomatology somewhere. And then bang, there is a diagnosis. So please don't let this get that far. So the first point was estrogen. Second point, insulin-like growth factors. The third point, the lactose. And the fourth point would then also be the casein as the milk protein. That puts an incredible strain on the intestines and metabolism. That can become a pseudo-allergic trigger, also to other foods. And we have to say today that of course a food is always good if it does not prevent its natural value. But when it comes to milk, I would like to appeal again that there are many aspects that have allowed us to be more careful with the milk. Especially since milk can no longer be described as milk in the sense that milk is of course sterilized and pasteurized today and therefore, of course, is no longer the same in terms of the informational character and the high quality of the milk. There are very interesting, also clinical studies, showing that when the milk is from the mother or from, experiments have been made with cats, a group of cats, they got the milk directly from their mother. The other kittens got their mother's pumped milk back via the microwave. So the cats that got it back via the microwave were compared. The milk had the same proportion of B vitamins, calcium, valuable minerals. There was nothing quantitatively changed. Which of course is also argued today. There is no loss of nutrients, but there was no more energy. This means that what has to be metabolized energetically as part of digestion was empty and the body could do nothing with it. These kittens in the experimental control group all died. But I would recommend you to develop a new strategy, that for this high consumption, and half to a liter of milk is just too much, that you could possibly look for valuable alternatives or maybe just say, thank you for the time. Until now I went this way. Now I'm more aware. Now I'm at a stage in life where I need to be more mindful. As a man at 55, in my opinion these are often very critical years, 60 to 70, that is, you have to maintain a certain stability and shouldn't just be so careless and put it at risk. I hope I was able to give you all some valuable information. And there are enough alternatives. Well, maybe not genetically engineered soy milk, but there are very good alternatives in organic shops today. And if then the consumption could be a little less, then the coffee is fine with a bit of sheep's milk or oat milk or coconut milk or whatever. Or rice milk. But you can still think about it on a plant basis. Of course, taste also plays a role. And if you only drink milk, then of course you have to learn to rethink things. But in the future you will only benefit from it. And I totally understand a worried wife and I would feel the same way. And therefore in this sense I wish you a lot of good awareness and above all stay very healthy, because today we are seeing a development of these types of tumors that is really frightening, where I say that is also ode to a life, ode to a time. And I don't even want to tell you how often it affects every so many men. But the numbers are really worrying. And it is always the triggering and summation of many processes. And there are completely different things that stimulate this process significantly, especially in the context of prostate carcinoma. But one is also the high consumption of milk. With this in mind, I wish you all a wonderful week. I am really looking forward to the next episode of Visit with you. Thank you very much for your letters via Visite at QS24.TV. And in this spirit, stay healthy, and I look forward to the next time. Goodbye.